So because, in theory, this season is meant to celebrate the show's history, there are tribute episodes to past seasons. About a handful of them, anyway. The first is A Lion's Alliance, a tribute to Wild Force. Again, in theory anyway. After some more Sentai footage is burned up, Gosei tells the Rangers that with the battles becoming more difficult, they need a new ally, and thus they're being sent on a mission.
Where are we going?
To a place called Animaria, a floating island in the shape of a turtle.
1, you mispronounced it. Animaria, not Maria. 2, no, that's the Animarium. Animaria was the land the Animarium sprung out of 3,000 years ago when the Orgs attacked and forced Princess Shayla into hibernation. 3.
What's on the island, Gosei?
A wild lion.
Yeah, and also about another 24 or so other wild Zords who would be helpful. Why are you guys fixating just on the lion? It's actually bizarre that they didn't find some way of connecting the wild Zords with the missing Robo Knight, since both were really all about protecting nature and crap. But hey, Wild Force tribute! That should be nice, right? We'll meet Princess Shayla again, learn what's happened in the last 10 years to the others. Or not, since we never see any of the human characters from Wild Force in this, not even any of the other Wild Zords, just the damn lion, which the Rangers managed to recruit into the team by the end. But hey, getting the original cast can be expensive, especially when it's just a one-off and some of them aren't even acting anymore and they're not necessarily the focus. Still, it's a pity they couldn't find Cole's actor. I wonder what he's been up to the last couple of years. To add to the lack of explanation for anything, it is Noah who senses the Lion Zord when they're on the Animarium. The Blue Ranger! Does his ability to sense the Red Lion mean anything? Nope. Does he uniquely wield the Red Lion for some bizarre reason? Nope! It's just a thing that's there to be part of the episode and then forgotten. To be fair, the episode does have a positive element here and there. For starters, while they do find the Animarium in the first 10 minutes, in story it takes them quite a while, matching up with what Wild Force said in that the Animarium was supposed to be hard to find. Also, when the Rangers change into the Wild Force Rangers, they actually do emulate the fighting style the Wild Force Rangers had, although that one is more the Sentai footage than anything else. Next, the Lion Zord only showed itself when they morphed into Wild Force, as if it recognized them at first, but then realized they weren't the real ones. Mind you, that one could just be me reading into things too much. This episode is also the first to highlight a smaller annoyance with the morphing into other teams. While they will occasionally do the morphing call, we never hear any of the theme songs. I really hope it's not yet another rights issue thing, because I would really hate it if Saban somehow got the rights back to all of the seasons, including releasing them in full on DVD, but not the theme songs for use in other seasons. The next episode is another tribute episode, Samurai Surprise. And with a title like that, clearly it's a Lightspeed Rescue tribute. Nah, I'm kidding, of course. Lightspeed Rescue does not get a tribute episode. Nor do they ever morph into Lightspeed in the entire damn season. Well, sort of, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, a samurai tribute featuring the first returning cast member. Once again, it makes sense to have samurai be the first for the newer audience. It's just the execution is crappy. Hell, calling it a tribute episode is a bit of a stretch. It's just that Jaden and Mentor G are in it briefly. This is in spite of the fact that they had a perfect opportunity with this episode. You'll recall that Octoroo survived the end of Samurai and was sent back to the Netherrealm. That apparently happened in Shinkenger too, and thus when Gokaiger did their Shinkenger tribute episode, they brought back their equivalent of Octoroo for it. What's more, I've been told that the Ranger keys utilized in that tribute episode are all ones that were in Power Rangers. So despite the fact that you have Jaden in this episode, and there is Sentai footage for the Super Megaforce team fighting and defeating Octoroo, the only villain from Samurai who actually could return, even then changing into legendary modes that were all ones adapted into Power Rangers, they decide to ignore it. You see what I mean about the bizarre form of laziness when it comes to Megaforce? They have a legacy story opportunity gift-wrapped for them, especially for the younger audience still around who watched Samurai, and they not only ignore it, they'll take greater pains to edit out Sentai-only Rangers in shots, while later just letting Sentai-only teams completely through. Then we have just something embarrassing from a meta perspective. This episode features the first time the team all morphs into the original Mighty Morphin team. and they get their asses kicked by a one-off enemy. Admittedly, it's one that's supposed to be part of the Armada's elite guard, but the morph into the original team, the ones that started it all, is treated as just any other team, no more important than when the Die Ranger footage was used. Later, Jaden shows up at Ernie's.
Plane, please.
Ah, bland. Just like you, Jaden. I love how they give a brief flashback to indicate that, yep, that's Jaden, and never for any of the other tributes they do in the season. The guy who was in the last friggin' series is the one they felt we needed to be reminded of. But yeah, he says he knows who they are.
We've been watching you. We know what you're up against.
And who is this we that he refers to? Him and G? The Samurai Rangers? All the other past Rangers? The Royal We? I'd sure as hell like to know. But don't worry, guys.
There's a simple explanation for that.
So why is he here? To give them the disc his father made, the one from Samurai's finale that doubled the user's power. I checked the episode again, and that disc was never destroyed, so kudos on the good continuity there. And then during a flashback, he vanishes. So, despite the fact that a Ranger team has their old powers, is actively aware of a threat to the entire world, and could continue to render assistance to the current team, they don't, at least not other than handing them a power-up. Enough with the friggin' power-ups and new Zords! Kids don't have enough money for all the crap you're trying to push on them at once! Figure out what's important to the damn show and focus on it! Have a consistent status quo for 2 damn episodes in a row before you try to change things up! Have some goddamn character development and character focus episodes already! Give us some character flaws and work on them! Stop dangling new powers in front of the children like they were your keys! Give us a reason to care about these fights, damn it! Sometimes they're too strong and too numerous. Sometimes you walk right through them. Sometimes you waste money filming new shots of the Megaforce suits fighting X-Porgs and then let Sentai teams in during the stock footage. How the hell does this happen? If you care more about the fight scenes than the story, why do you even bother having a story? Just have the entire damn series be a repackaging of all the fight scenes. No names or connection at all. Oh wait, we already have that because they have the damn Sentai-only teams in there!
Jaden said to use our instincts to sense their next move. Let's do that and use our best legendary mode to fight them with!
Which is why we then see them morphing into teams that they've never morphed into before, or ones that have never appeared on this show before.
How can this be?
For they are the Kwisatz Haderach! Why not? Makes about as much sense as anything else. Oh, and Jaden and Master G during this fight offer their assistance by somehow granting them the ability to unlock a Samurai Zord? So is that how it works? The other Ranger teams are watching them and they grant them the ability to access their weapons? Why not just give them all at once? The Earth is in danger! Go help them! Be active!
Do something! Do something!
Do something!
So is there a tribute episode this season that I'd at least call decent, even if it's not completely good? Well, yes, the next one, Spirit of the Tiger. During a trip to the zoo, the Ranger spots someone raking leaves in a tiger cage, as you do, shocked by how he's just able to be in the cage without upsetting the tiger also in it.
Do you guys know what a rhino's horn is made of? It's made of hair. Tiny little hairs clumped together that grow all the time.
Well, sort of. It's made out of keratin, the same material that hair and fingernails are made out of, and structurally more tightly compressed. Whatever. That's actually pretty close and accurate. Congratulations, Megaforce. You have found something you're good at. Animal trivia.
Hey, did you know tigers are the only cat that love water?
Yes, they can swim up to 6 miles.
Okay, enough! We get it! You read zoo books when you were little! But yeah, since Noah is evidently the only one who actually bothered to study up on past Ranger teams, the others don't recognize the Order of the Claw symbol on the jacket. Later, Emma and Jake run into Casey as he's teaching a group of students. Hey, he's still teaching. That's awesome. Master Mao would be proud.
Well, if you want to quit, that's fine. We got plenty of job openings at the custodial department, so you can clean up your shit performance!
During a fight, a monster uses his unique skills to steal their weapons away from them. This is a rather annoying thing for them since they rely on their weapons so much. We'll forgive for a second that before Super Megaforce, they were actually quite proficient in martial arts, and they still managed to force the monster to retreat using Wild Force's fighting style with the claws and whatnot, but that's not good enough for Troy.
We let go of our weapons. A Ranger must never let go of his weapons.
Since when? Where the hell is this coming from? Did he berate Jake earlier when he lost his weapons in the middle of a fight? Why is he expressing more emotion about this than at the beginning of the season when Robo Knight was missing? Jake and Emma think about how, to combat the monster, they should do something other than use weapons, so go to Casey in the hopes that he can teach them some kung fu. He does so, helping them release their animal spirits. Naturally, it's Jake the Snake and Emma the Phoenix. Real props to Jason Smith in this episode, who plays the part as a seasoned master, showing that he has evolved into a more confident teacher after everything he went through in Jungle Fury. But hey, let's move away from the good part of the episode to the really stupid parts.
Have you been here all night?
Yeah.
Wow, it truly is like the Mighty Morphin days when they seemingly had no parents. Except, of course, for that episode where we met the Ranger's parents. So this is dumber. And why couldn't he research this at home? Is the database only accessible from that one computer? But hey, at least Noah was using his time productively, researching Ranger powers and weapons to find something that they could use against the monster that wouldn't get pulled away by it. Troy's response?
I told you, a ranger never lets go of his weapon. Next time, we just won't let go.
Good morning. Reasons why I drink. You may have noticed that we have a new face in our group.
But yeah, thanks to Casey's training, they're able to defeat the monster. Although mysteriously, after he's defeated, they can't find Casey, and the people at the zoo say that he never worked there. Like so much else, it's never explained. Still, despite some hiccups with the idiotic dialogue from Troy, this was actually a pretty good episode, and a worthy tribute to Jungle Fury. One that I suspect would never have happened if not for one thing. Jason Smith, who played Casey, is one of the writers of the season. In fact, he wrote Samurai Surprise, which we won't hold against him. But yeah, I suspect that's the only reason this episode happened at all, which is something I'll get into more during the analysis portion. Admittedly, I'm very happy that it happened. Jungle Fury was the only season that never had a crossover with any of the other series, unless you count the blink and you'll miss it Jungle Karma Pizza cameo in RPM, which was a series that took place in another dimension. But in this case, Megaforce finally gives it the acknowledgement it deserved. And frankly, you gotta take the victories where you can find them. There's only one more tribute episode later in the season, and it's another bad one, but first we need to have our other 6th Ranger debut. Now, considering Robo Knight was already our 6th Ranger, and he had the largest and most in-depth story arc in the series about learning more about humanity, plus he was already a part of the team, that he would come back and be a proper Ranger, maybe even make him human somehow. But now, remember, this series actively tries to discourage you from thinking about it logically. What they go with is a perfectly fine idea, but not very well executed. Shock of all shocks. And thus we have the 2-part Silver Lining. An Armada ship crashes on Earth near a forest, a single human figure emerging from it. Prince Vakar orders a massive army of X-Borgs to Earth to attack, even though it looks no different than usual, and the Rangers keep going to attack sightings, only to find the X-Borgs defeated already each time. Asking people about it, they say a Silver Ranger saved them. Mind you, if they remembered that they can teleport, they might get there in time, but whatever. As with so many 6th Rangers before, the Silver Ranger shows up and uses super speed to defeat his enemies. Funny how it always seems like joining up with a team slows them down, isn't it? I like the Silver Ranger outfit. It's basically just a silver version of the super mode, but to keep with the pirate theme, his helmet is colored half black like a bandana, but with a yellow visor that looks like sunglasses. It's really cool. The Silver Ranger withdraws after dealing with the X-Borgs, hinting in all his dialogue that the Armada destroyed his world. What's odd is that in his civilian mode, they hide his face as if the reveal would be a big deal, and of course, it's someone we've never seen before. This is Orion, who comes from the planet Andrasia. Andrasia was a planet similar to Earth, but was utterly decimated by the Armada. Orion was a miner who just barely managed to survive the attack, although his family and village didn't. He swore vengeance for this, and I've got to admit, Cameron Jibo, his actor, is doing fine with the material. It's just there isn't really much substance beyond this. They bring Orion to Gosei, and it turns out Tensu can speak Andrasian. Does that mean Tensu was built on Andrasia?
There's a simple explanation for that.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, Gosei says he thought the Ranger key had been destroyed along with Andrasia, so he knew about the key? Why was it on Andrasia? Orion explains that he found it and the Morpher a week before the attack encased in crystal. Why was it sealed in crystal? Why was it buried in a rock? When he put the key close to the morpher, he had a vision of various Sixth Rangers. Why did he have this vision?
Far too complex for you to understand.
Orion was smart enough not to just put the weird-ass key in the box and hope for the best. At least not until the Armada destroyed his world.
Whatever happens, happens.
He was too late to save his world and failed to find any other survivors. He self-taught himself to survive and fight, so basically our 6th Ranger this time is Green Arrow.
And I started to realize that the 6th Rangers were calling out to me for a reason, to stop the Armada from doing to any other planets what they had done to mine.
And he's hearing voices that tell him to kill people. Some Armada ships had stayed behind to guard the planet, and he took one down with a slingshot. A really big slingshot and a chunk of rock. Okay, I do love that because it's Power Rangers insanity, but also highlights that apparently these Armada ships are constructed out of scotch tape, tinfoil, and a lot of prayer. The Armada rescued the crew of the ship, but left the ship itself behind, apparently not wondering how a rock got into the engine. Orion repaired it over the course of several months and learned how to pilot it, eventually catching up with the Armada on Earth. They, of course, have more questions and show him around.
We use visual markers to find our way to the command center.
Confirming that, indeed, apparently they just forgot they have a working teleporter!
Hey, Orion, I noticed your morpher was different from ours.
There's a simple explanation for that.
No. We've got a better reason not to get into that and never have it be explained. Clothing montage! You know, it's not every show that can go from genocide, thoughts of revenge, being the lone survivor of your people, and then go straight into a wacky fashion montage. Maybe there's a reason for that. I mean, like, yeah, based on the two-parter, he's been on Earth for a little bit of time, maybe not a long time, but at least a few days, and he's just got done talking about the most traumatic, horrible experience of his life, so let's give him a makeover and dress him up like Billy Idol. We can't stop here. It's Zombat country. You know what gets me? We have yet another missed opportunity here. They describe Andrasia as being just like Earth, and the description of the Sentai-only teams is that they've never been seen on Earth before. Why didn't they say that these were Ranger teams from Andrasia? Sure, they still would have been lazy in giving us any information about them, but at least it's some kind of explanation of where they come from. Plus, it really highlights how dangerous the situation is, that Andrasia had their own Power Rangers, their own legacy of teams that could have defied the Armada, and all failed. But of course, we don't get that. We get nothing. Anyway, Orion is able to access the keys of the 6th Rangers because of reasons. Mind you, he's able to access forms that are not supposed to be Rangers, like Daggeron Solaris Knight, or if the pictures on his morpher are to be believed, Robo Knight, and Dino Thunder White Ranger, even though he was the 5th team member, not a 6th Ranger. I don't care what the Sentai says. By the logic of him being an extra Ranger or character or whatever, the Rhino Ranger from Jungle Fury should be a 6th Ranger. Utilizing the 6th Ranger powers also grants him a Zord. What a shocker, another Zord. Although this one at least makes sense for a 6th Ranger to have. No idea where the hell it came from, but there's a simple explanation, yada yada, you get the drill. He gets the Q-Rex Megazord, which they say is based off of the Q-Rex from Time Force, although the similarities are only in their names and the fact that both are dinosaurs. The Q-Rex is pretty cool, very similar in design and feel to the original Dragonzord. Hell, if this was better written, I probably would have said that it was rebuilt from the Dragonzord. After all, the original Dragonzord was never destroyed, and it'd be a pretty great way to truly connect it back to the first season. He gets an upgraded form, basically a battleizer, so he can access all 6th Ranger powers. A power-up one episode after he debuts. I'll give you all a moment to pick your jaws up off the floor at that revelation. And it is the most butt-ugly power-up in the world. A huge gold armor with the faces of 6th Rangers all over it. Yeah, might make for a nice, if tacky, display in a home, not something to wear into combat. But hey, let's remember that he is a tragic figure here with a sad history as a result of his survivor's guilt and overwhelming need for vengeance. Man, look at the raw emotion and angst he exhibits. Not since Dr. K have we seen someone reborn out of so much pain and loss. He also apparently lives in a locker at the high school, which is just goofy enough for me to love. But hey, at least in this episode, The Power of 6, we finally get something that should have been said 30 episodes ago.
So work as a team, expect the unexpected, and may the power protect you.
Or rather, let my stuff protect you. Hey, want some more stuff, guys? I've got like another 10 Zords just sitting in my crawl space. In a filler episode, they gain the ability to combine the Q-Rex and Super Megaforce Megazord together. And by combine, I mean the Megazord gets the Q-Rex's arms. Even the things that are normally awesome feel lazy.
Super Mega Rangers, that's a mega win!
Wow, the filler episode was so pathetic it didn't even earn a Super Mega win. As I said earlier, there was one more tribute episode they did. And it's possibly the laziest of all of them. In the driver's seat, Gosei receives an extra-dimensional distress call and summons the Rangers.
Rangers, we've picked up an emergency signal from Corinth.
Corinth.
A portal is opened between the two universes, so I guess the interdimensional subway trains are now obsolete, and they're calling for help. However, Gosei is reluctant for them to go through, since he feels that if they go through, Earth will be without its defenders. Except, of course, we've already seen that other Ranger teams are aware of the threat and could be called upon. Hell, just call the Samurai Rangers to go through to the RPM universe. They've been there before in their team-up. Oh, and speaking of that team-up...
Aha! Back on Earth! Phase 1 of the plan is complete.
When the skyship travels through the wormhole, Professor Cog seals it behind them, trapping them in the RPM universe. Well, hey, now's the time to correct the mistakes of last year's team-up. Have the full teams meet. Show our heroes what the result of their world being brought to the brink of death could do if they don't beat the Armada. Have Orion in particular reflect on the loss of his world versus an Earth that was all but ended, yet still has crawled back from the apocalypse, showing that there is always hope. Or, have the Rangers meet nobody from RPM, spend their entire time in the skyship, and focus the plot around some random Zord that's out of control. That works too. And yet they do a little character development, as Emma reflects on how many times they've saved the world, causing Orion to wince at that, but still admit he's happy he's met them and can stop the Armada this time.
Wow. Just look at this place.
Yeah.
It's like stepping into Ranger history.
Wow, this looks nothing at all like Corinth. I'll grant you, it's probably been a few years for them, and we can assume there's been a lot of reconstruction since Vengeance was defeated. But of course, the real reason it looks like this is because it's just frickin' Sentai footage from Gokaiger's tribute episode to Go-Onger, which of course had a completely different setting from RPM. It's the same idiocy as was on display for the Wild Force tribute. No one involved with RPM is actually in the episode, just Professor Cog, a villain from last year's team-up who's alive for some reason. You can't even call it fan service when there isn't any fan service. This is asinine!
Are they lame or just incompetent?
And Professor Cog's little master plan? Yeah, Prince Vicar is pissed that somebody else is taking his glory and possibly destroyed the Rangers instead of him, so he goes and fights Cog and his grinders. And there must be some sort of toxic spillage in the air left over from Vengeance, because the Rangers' first plan to deal with the issue, the Turbo Falcon Zord, which I should add is doing nothing wrong but speeding down a giant highway back and forth, is to grab a megaphone and yell at it. Behold their tribute to one of the darkest series Power Rangers ever did. Look, to make a long story short, they tame the Turbo Falcon, return to Earth, and Professor Cog is destroyed for real this time. Next up story-wise is All Hail Prince Vicar. Prince Vicar is destroyed in this episode. Move on. Okay, there is a little more to it than that. The Emperor of the Armada sends Vicar a gift, a Megazord that he can use to conquer Earth. We even get a brief flashback that shows Vicar's insecurities, how Damaris, the brown armored guy, was sent to act as Vicar's adjutant by the Emperor to keep him from being harmed, especially because
he's an empty-headed blunderer, nothing like his brother.
The Rangers destroy him and Argus, his bodyguard. I haven't mentioned him or Damaris by name until now, because they mean nothing to the plot. They have character traits, but they affect nothing overall, so why even bother? So yeah, Vicar fights them for most of the episode, but eventually loses. And while occasionally he could tell a funny joke, nothing of real value was lost. All Hail Prince Vicar feels like a two-parter that's been smashed into one part, with rushed pacing as a result. So yeah, Vicar is dead. However,
it's no surprise that my dim-witted brother was too weak to challenge the Rangers.
Yes, an episode that felt like a rushed two-parter now leads us into an actual two-parter. You want to know how lazy the writers were? How much they clearly didn't care at this point? The episodes are called Vrak is Back. Except his name is pronounced Vrak, so the rhyme doesn't work. They couldn't remember how to pronounce the name of their own damn character. Vrak kidnaps Orion.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Vrak drains Orion's life force and loudly exposits his plan to use his energy to block the Rangers' super modes and release a giant drill into the planet. Credit where it's due, kidnapping Orion and using his power to block their super modes is actually pretty clever, since of course we are now back to Ghost Ager footage, meaning no Silver Ranger and no legendary pirates. Of course, instead of having 2 episodes dealing with the first season's leftovers, they could have just had Vrak destroy their powers at the end while dying himself, then you guys get a fresh start and thus 2 more episodes for, you know, character development or proper tribute episodes. Vrak walks through the Rangers easily, having somehow gained new powers in the intervening 15 episodes that give him his current form. He says he won't kill them yet, just wants to watch them suffer. And I swear you can make an hour-long supercut of the entirety of Power Rangers for every villain who retreats because the Rangers aren't worth it, or they want them to suffer, and then gets their asses kicked later for it. However, he then reveals his next pawn, Robo Knight. Yep, Robo Knight has been in his possession this entire time, probably taken at the end of the last season. Utilizing the powers of the 6th Ranger that Orion had access to, he takes control of Robo Knight, turning him into Dark Robo Knight. Also, 2 monsters that, when destroyed, become new giant drills. Robo Knight, of course, is able to toss the Rangers around too, and yet again, Vrak has them spared so they can suffer. Or rather, to unleash the remaining drills. Not sure why he can't just do it himself, but whatever. I don't know why I'm complaining so much. Vrak is the most competent villain in Megaforce. His plan is actually fairly solid in this 2-parter, and he actually has posed a legitimate threat in the show. And yeah, since they're in Ghost Ager footage again, they remember that they have the Gosei Great Megazord on hand. Upon one of the monsters becoming a drill, Vrak exposits that his plan is to have all 3 drills go to the center of the Earth and utterly destroy it from the inside out. Heading into part 2, Emma is sent in the command ship. Oh yeah, that exists too, doesn't it? Bet that would have come in handy against the Armada. To try to destroy one of the drills, Bud is unable to make a dent in it. Troy stops the others from attacking Robo Knight with anything too powerful, not wanting him to be injured since they hope to recover him. Unfortunately, when it comes to stuff like that, it means a Robo ass kicking. Troy takes on Robo Knight alone while the others engage Vrak's remaining monster. The Rangers destroy the monster. They really have little choice here, sadly. And the fight with Troy eventually leads to him being demorphed. And Troy just gets wailed on, desperately trying to get Robo Knight to see reason. It's frankly the most emotion he's shown in the entirety of Megaforce.
Robo Knight! You have a mission to fulfill!
Acting! Of course, that also leads to this. What was that?
There's a simple explanation for—
Oh, shut your inanimate face! Going Super Saiyan and I am a man punching Robo Knight somehow corrects his programming or something. Robo Knight thinks he's damaged beyond repair, but the others plan to bring him back to the command center to be fixed. However, they're distracted by the arrival of the last drill in the ground.
There's one last thing I must do alone. Goodbye, true friends.
Robo Knight returns to Vrak's base.
Vrak, I will not permit you to activate the drill.
Let the woman go, you are under arrest.
Vrak, not caring anymore about his underwater base, destroys it to kill both Robo Knight and Orion. As such, Robo Knight carries Orion away with the last of his strength, while the Rangers go to confront Vrak and end him once and for all. He activates the drills and the Rangers fight valiantly, even as Vrak causes a solar eclipse, which somehow enhances his power. However, also somehow, the Rangers are able to tap into the eclipse too, because shut up, and finally destroy Vrak, which also somehow stops the drills. On a nearby shore, Orion has washed up, unconscious and drained, but alive. Robo Knight gave the last of his life force to Orion to keep him alive, meaning that at least a part of him will always be with them. Vrok's back is still not all that great, since it's pretty much just endless fights and proclamations of the same thing over and over again, but at least I'm invested in a bit of it because of Robo Knight's story. It's a pretty epic finale for him too. The machine built to protect the Earth that never understood humans, sacrificing himself to save a single person and save the Earth. But of course, there are still 3 more episodes to go, so let's dive in.